From meme to utility, Loki has it all. NFT metaverse game called Valhalla. Loki University, DeFi, charity, and shopping. Loki is governed by the people, for the people. Loki, together there is no stopping us.
The Credifi testnet is live, so head on over to demo.credifi.finance to see how you can effortlessly experiment with autonomous earning, NFT corporate bonds, Credi and X-Credi utilities, and Module X.
Good afternoon, everyone. BC Richfield here, coming to you live from London. It's just gone a couple of minutes past midday, making it just gone 11 a.m. UTC. A big shout out to everybody that's making the stream live today. Obviously, special mention for Nit, first in today. Very well done. Quickly followed by Craig, Williest, and a few other people coming in at the moment. So big hello, good morning or good afternoon to all of you wherever you are in the world. I think we'll have a little shorter or smaller stream today. I don't think this is going out massively public, so I wanted to do like a slightly shorter, more focused one today. So obviously with the big move down that we've had, everything that's gone on, I wanted to kind of speak about it in a way that we can kind of step back from this, because I know this can be very stressful for a lot of people, right? Moves like this, the drops that we get. So it makes sense to just be able to kind of zoom out a little bit. But just quickly, Rave Song Records, good morning, mate. Was there anything that anyone had any particular want to look over today? Anything that you wanted me to particularly chart? MSTR, yeah, absolutely. Love that as well, Raves Record. Good morning from Chicago. Awesome. Is it the Windy City they call Chicago? Yeah, really want to do a bit more traveling around the States. I've been over there to New York, actually, and absolutely loved it and really didn't think that I would. But yeah, absolutely, you can have a look at MSTR. Is there anything else anybody else had on their radar? Yeah, sure. LQTY. Perfect. All right. Well, we normally make this about our alt request Wednesday. So let's make sure that we can kind of get some of those in there. And IMX. Cool. All right. Well, you know what? That gives us a really good couple to look at. So let me just make a note of those. And then we're going to start and work down there in order. And we're going to look at BTC as well. That's right. So we're going to look at Bitcoin. We're going to kind of set the charts off with that and see where we are. Then we're going to dive into MSTR and then LQTY and IMX. Awesome. Right. Okay, guys. So let's just take a look at this. Where are we at the moment with BTC? So this is my high time frame chart. All right. Yeah. And hello. Welcome to the show. And you are very welcome. If you've got anything you'd like us to take a look at. Sorry, you did recommend LQTY. Yeah, you're very welcome. So look, this is the chart that I do the Bitcoin report on every week on a Sunday evening. Okay, I like doing the one on the Sunday evening because it gives me somebody that looks very much towards traditional markets that obviously only open over on the weekdays, a chance to kind of see how the market's appetite for risk ended the week and how we might look for it to start the week, and if Bitcoin, being kind of like a heavy risk asset, is going to kind of be able to jump on that bandwagon, or if we're going to see any kind of effect. So, for example, like today, we've got a huge news day on the US markets. Okay, so we need to be really cautious about that because these things can have a huge impact. All right, so today we're looking at USA. We've got non-farm employment change 115. That's brought forward to 245. Final manufacturing PMI, ISM manufacturing PMI at 3 o'clock. JOLTS job openings as well at 3 o'clock. And then we run straight down into that always relatively dreaded FOMC statement and federal funds rate, okay, which starts from 7 o'clock my time, which would be, these times will be an hour earlier in UTC. All right, guys. Hey, Whackburn, great to have you in, guys. Welcome. So now we've taken a quick look at the news. Let's look at the charts. So a few things to say. Yes, I've been a little bit bearish on crypto, really, since we failed to come above here, right? Now, this was the previous all-time high. These levels are always really key. If we look at what happened at the previous all-time high before, yeah, we can see there's a little bit of a similarity in how we came into this. We saw this initial rejection, same as we got over here, right? This initial rejection. Then we saw a price climb up and close above it a little bit, exactly like we did here, all right? The difference is we didn't take this previous high, because what happened here is we had kind of a larger swing failure on a kind of a more immediate swing fail here, right? So this came in where this one didn't take the high, but look at the same way you get the small body candle peak over the top, right? Then when we get that close back below, for me, that was showing a lot of weakness. Now, we don't know. We're only ever making assumptions based on strategies and based on data as to what's going to happen with the market from here, right? But as we saw with this one, it made sense to me when we were here to get a correction down to here, all right? And I'll tell you as for why. This leg from low to high here, if we look at that in terms of premium and discount, it made sense that if price was going to look to move higher, that we see a correction down to this kind of 50% area, and we want to highlight the fair value gap or the order block or something that's of interest down here. And for me, this was really, really of interest, right? We came down, we set this order block, right? When we came down this one here, price closed above it. We saw that nice impulse move up here into the previous all-time high. We took that liquidity. Now, when we failed to respect this, yeah, here, we can see that when price closed below, it naturally gravitates to the next key point of liquidity. And that's why it's so important that we have a high time frame bias, because, you know, you could look at this on a 15-minute chart or an hourly chart, etc. And, you know, this move that's in here, that looks pretty straightforward here, would be all kinds of peaks and troughs on the way down, right? Okay, so this is why when we're looking for lows and highs, you know, when you're in here, you're like, oh, there's a low here, there's a low here, there's a low here. Which one am I really looking for? Okay, what you want to do is zoom out, obviously dependent on what your kind of time frame system is, and then look for those kind of clean and clear high time frame levels. So when you see them get disrespected, especially, then the chances are that, you know, that the institutions, the hedge funds, the banks, the people that, you know, are really throwing their weight around in this space, need clear and obvious places to offload those positions. All right. So that's what we're theorizing. Now, if we take this and we look back over here, the reason that I've been bearish, and look, I'm not saying that crypto is going to zero, but it made a lot of sense to me that we had this really big impulse move higher, right? Now, in this move here from low to high, we at least had this small consolidation here. Price came into this gap. We see it wicked in, found the buyers. You can see how price reacts to it, right? Look at the downside wick here. Look, when price tried to shoot up here, this was just completely and utterly wiping out liquidity. People were probably over leveraging here to go short because we'd had the consolidation. The price ripped up to take all of those people out, induced people to go long, wipes liquidity out the other side of the market by taking out these lows, finds support in this gap, and then obviously really takes off. Markets do typically work in that way, as frustrating as it is. But how many times have you heard people say to you, oh God, you know, like, I knew that price was going there. I knew Bitcoin was going to go to that level, but my stop got taken and then the market took off without me. So when we look at this move up here, which is larger and full of larger body candles, then this gap that we got left here made a lot of sense to me that we would come down into this area, right? And even a little bit deeper, so we get down into this lower 50% here. So at the moment, on a weekly scale, you know, this looks perfectly healthy, all right? One thing that we do want to look for here, actually, if I put that back, is as we look at these previous weekly lows, and obviously we've got, you know, a long time left in the week here. It's only Wednesday, so we've got all of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, obviously Saturday, Sunday with Bitcoin as well, but we expect the majority of the high volume moves to happen in the weekdays. We can see how when we've taken the lows, you've seen the buyers step in. It's come down, taken the lows, the buyers have stepped in. At the moment, we've got a pin bar candle here, or a bearish hammer candle. And then on this side, we've got what's looking like a really, really big-bodied bearish candle driving price down into here. Now, what the bulls will want to see is a pretty quick and aggressive recovery when we get down into here. We want to see price get bored up pretty quickly and get out of this in a V-shaped style recovery. Now, you know, it will take a few weeks for that to play out on a weekly scale. So what we do is we can decant that down onto the lower time frames and look how we might, let me lock that for a second, and then look how we might formulate a plan around that. Okay, so we can see with these weekly levels here what happened. Price came into this, drove down into it, bought up. Price came into this, drove down into it, got bought up again. So with price now taking liquidity below this low, yeah, the one thing that concerns me a little bit is if we drag that across to there, and let me just add these onto the daily wick so they don't look so confusing. Right, so the concern here is this. If we look at the first candle, the way this came in, the first candle came right back up straight away. This candle came into this level, that tail wick came back up, and we had this nice corrective move. Now, this actually was swept here. And we had price pull back a little bit, and what we can see here that's different to the others is price has now gone beyond that already. Okay, so it's clearly got a lot of downward momentum at the moment. So on a daily scale, what are we looking for? Well, we have the larger weekly fair value gap in here, and we can see that we had this gap here, and we still have this gap. Right, and this gap has been significant. We're just going to line that up as FVGD to show this is our daily. Now, the reason this has been significant is let's look at what it's done previously. We left this gap, price dipped into this, and then really took off. It came back and found support here after sweeping out this level, and that's where goes the corrective move to take out this high. Unfortunately, you know, the sellers were still strong here, so when we took out this high, price ultimately sold off lower. Now, what we'd be looking for here, or certainly I think what the bulls are going to be looking for here, is to defend this gap. Excuse me. So in defending this gap, they don't want to see price close below it. Okay, price closes below it, the chances are that it's looking for liquidity lower. The issue that we have in formulating a plan on the daily time frame here is that we have this gap here. We also have this gap here. And we know that price can basically react to at any of them. So with that in mind, they provide a draw on price down because they want to be rebalanced. However, we need to respect the fact that they're also within the range of a larger weekly gap. So what we will do from here is move down to the 4-hour time frame and then look for a reversal pattern that we can get involved in to give us that little bit of extra confidence, or you know, to look for price to retrace for somewhere where it could be looking to continue its path to the downside. So let's flick ourselves over onto a 4-hour chart. Turn these daily dividers off for a second. Right, so this is kind of the most granular level that I would want to work at looking at this from a kind of high time frame perspective. Okay, if I'm looking at a triple screen system, meaning that I've got a high time frame, a framing time frame, and then a low time frame that I'm looking to execute on, then the 4-hour is the highest that I'll push that. So what do we want to see here? Well, let's look, first of all, at what we saw when we saw this recovery here. All right, because look, if we can find what was a major part of this recovery, we can look for the same thing down here. Then, if we're wrong, we should still be able to get a nice trade, because price typically, even if this isn't the reversal here, price is typically seeking out liquidity, right? So we can see this beautiful high here within this fair value gap was taken. They're amazing liquidity pools. So we could get involved here, mitigate our risk here. And if we're wrong and price isn't ready to go higher and it does break down, then we still make some money on the trade. So what was the key thing in here for me? Well, there was a couple of things. Let me just get rid of these to clean this up a moment. So this fair value gap inversion started the base, the price found support, and then came into bullish structure moving up, okay? What you'll notice here is the reversal of this is true up here. When this bullish gap failed to find support, Price came underneath, retested it, and then sold off lower, okay? Typically, price then respects the up close candles, which are the order blocks. Okay, so when these were set, price came in, resistance here. When we dropped below that level, these up close candles here as price sold off were respected ultimately again here. See how the bodies respect that and move lower. So considering that, the last move down that we've had, or the most recent, just left this large bodied singular candle here. Now, when this candle closed here, for me, this confirms this as a valid order block. So now what I'm saying is, okay, well, if I want to see some bullish resurgence, the first thing that I want to see are bearish fair value gaps or bearish order blocks not respected, right? So if we get price to do this, you're going to see a quick recovery through this. Then I'm going to be looking into the retestings here on the lower time frames and targeting liquidity above the highs as we go up. Now, doesn't mean that this is going to be an overall reversal. It could just be a corrective move like this one was. But if we get in at the right point and know where our liquidity is resting, then from there, we can formulate a sensible plan, all right? And again, allowing us to mitigate our risk is always about capital protection as well as winning trades. So what else did we want to see here? Well, you want to see some kind of inducement. You want to see the market sweep some form of liquidity and give a reason behind, all right? So this. And give a reason behind it, why it's going to reverse. Price came down, took this liquidity, yeah, inverted this, so disrespected this bearish gap, then flips this to support and then starts to make its way up and finds ultimately some place to sell higher here before continuing its downward trajectory. All right. So that's what we're looking at on there. So for me, I want to see price get above this level here. So I want to see a close, let's say above 61.57, that kind of area. And then I'd be thinking that price is either looking at as a minimum to drive deeper into this gap here, but certainly I'd be looking at these highs as we look up because we've got an untapped high here, 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 and here. All right. Liquidity is really starting to build in the same way that when price was coming down here, we had an untapped high here, here, and here. You see how price starts to run that liquidity before then kind of selling off. So without further ado, let's take a look at the first one on our list, which is MSTR. Okay, MSTR, this one here. Oh, okay, so a spot asset on BitGet. Wow, okay, yeah, that is not going to be a lot of data on a weekly scale, right? Always worth checking, but this thing, wow, yeah, okay, so opening price of this was 1,600, which was here. Huge pump and dump, and then a massive sell-off. You see this. And no offense if you're invested in this, it happens to all of us, but you see this with a lot of Ponzi projects. You see this with a lot. Is it the stock? Sorry, Nip. Can you give me the ticker? Because, yeah, we can see it's very, very difficult to do TA on assets like this, but what you can still see is true is how, price respects these up close candles right on the way down. So see how these. So for me, this area here would be the key thing that price wants to kind of get back above and then build that as a base to move higher. Otherwise, I think, yeah, this thing's dead in the water. But on NASDAQ, oh, okay, mate, sure. Well, let's have a look, shall we? MSTR. Oh, nice. MicroStrategy. Okie doke. Right. So, I mean, obviously very, very correlated with Bitcoin, right? Let me just get this on here. Just to kind of show that a little bit for you guys as well, that you can see how very, very similar it is, right? price coming down. I know this is gapping, this is kind of like more of like volume imbalances and stuff, right? But you can still see here how price is kind of driving down, drawing down to find those levels, and how the kind of price action looks very similar. You've got this small consolidation here, the recent pump, small consolidation, recent pump. Now, obviously, MicroStrategy is incredibly famous for being exposed heavily to Bitcoin. So it's not, unrealistic to expect its performance to be heavily kind of correlated. Now, what we've done here is we've taken out this low. Excuse me. Price now dropping like it is when we set these up close candles here. What I'd be looking for here is for price to close below this. It hasn't yet. We'd need the weekly candle to do so, right? But when we get these change in state of delivery, or these new set order blocks, or supply and demand, however you kind of think about them, we look at these down close candles here, for example. There's a lot here, but when you look in here, see when this one closes above it here, it shows us that the down close candles here aren't being respected. And like we said with the order blocks before, and that's what this now becomes with it closing above, we then want to see this dipped into, and then ultimately it leads to, in this case, a bullish move. In the case of the bears, which we can see up here, when we're looking at the up close candles, and I would include this one would be the one that I would look at the most. This one kind of closes below. All right, yes, price comes and closes below here. It does wick back up, but look, it doesn't manage to get back above it, ultimately leading to this downwards movement that we see now. Joshua Walker, hello, mate. Been a while since I've seen you on here. Very, very welcome. So from a position of a change of state of delivery, if we get that weekly close down here, I think we're looking at a purge a little bit deeper here for MicroStrategy. But what we're looking at the moment is price kind of coming into this gap. This seems to be what the main kind of draw is, right, on a weekly basis. Now, this will be so dependent on what Bitcoin does, in my opinion, because of MicroStrategy's exposure to it. Obviously, it looks very weak at the moment, but if Bitcoin starts to find support and this flush is being bought up, and there is every chance that it is. Look, we see it so often in stocks, right? When you see these big drops, and I know this is an extreme, example because we just had this pullback here, right? But when you see these drops here, even like this one, look how it gets bought up, comes up, takes out a key liquidity point. Then the market kind of settles into its bearish trend here. Then we go into this large period of consolidation here. Then we see this final pump up here, this drop, big expansion. Again, people at this stage are typically still a little bit hesitant because they've been hurt by these getting involved in these pumps here and then seeing price sell off. Look what happens here. You have this big drop here before this really super normal pump. I'm not saying that's what we're going to get, but like with anything, when we look at these situations, you can see this big move here, and then we get this drop, or this one here, I suppose, is probably the most prominent drop. Then again, what we can look for are these areas that we're expecting to offer resistance, right? So whether it's the gaps that we have, when they're violated, then you say, okay, we got this high here, trading up into that. Yes, we gap above that. But ultimately then, as we were saying here, if our up close candles are acting as our bearish order blocks, right, and we expect them to suppress price, then when they're disrespected, look how price, when it gets above it, comes back, treats this as a base. And now there's a really logical reason for this, right? And that's because if the sellers were here before, and they've sold off aggressively, when price returns here, they're going to look to sell again because the sell pressure there was very strong. So let's say they made loads of money on the way down here, or some of them will even have positions open, right, across a longer time frame. Then when they get back to here, a decision has to be made. You load up on the position again. If you see weakness here, then you've got to cover your position, right? So you're either going to hedge or you're going to flip your position to long, saying that, okay, if you get back below here, then the chances are very high that price is going lower. But as long as this holds, the chances of your upside are much greater. So that's what I'd be looking for here. So overlaying that to this, then we're looking at the fact that we're now moving down, right? So we're expecting the up close candles to provide resistance. Just to give a little example of that. This was our bearish order block here. Price dropped down, set the up close candles, closed below it here, confirmed it as an order block. What happened? Price took liquidity, came back to the order block. Yeah, selling pressure was very, very strong. Price sold off again, right? We see the same thing happened above here. Price closed below, worked back up, sold off again. All right. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for these violations. So on a daily scale, that's where we are. It seems to me with price kind of taking out liquidity from this low, we've had a very, very minor correction. There wasn't a strong reaction there. We've now kind of got price reacting with this low here. So we want to keep an eye on this move here. Now on a daily scale, I would want to see these here. This is the area I'm really keen for price to reclaim. Yeah. Want to see price cut through this, and then we look to hold this as support, and then I think we can move higher. Remembering all the time that this is obviously going to be heavily correlated with Bitcoin as well. Okay. So let's just look at this on the 4 hour quickly as well. So the 4 hour, obviously we've got a lot of gapping on this. So we need to be cautious with that. But I would say on the 4 hour here, we can see the same kind of dynamic. Obviously, it's just you get more candles on the breakdown from the daily. Just looking for the best kind of level. I think it would basically, what we're looking for here is going to be very, very similar to what we're going to have to look for up there on the daily, right? But we might get a little bit of an early indication from this area here, right? If we get a big cut through this, there are a few tricky little points to navigate here, right? Because we've got this high that sat within the fair value gap over here, and then this high over here. So I'd probably look to trade this on a smaller time frame. We close above this on the 4 hour, scalp into here, see if we show strength in here. If we start to respect, yeah, the bullish side of the curve, all right? So meaning, are we respecting the down close candles like we are here, for example? Again, you know, look how nice and clean that is. Down close candle before a big pump. When price eventually gets back there, just taps into it slightly, and we see a lot of that buying power kind of moving forward. And, you know, price is kind of still within that realm here. So we want to kind of see that hold. So that's how I would be looking at that, a little bit kind of less clear, but I hope that's been of some help. Let me just have a quick look here. 1 second, guys. Okay, so we're now going to go into LQTY. So let's have a look at that. I'm guessing this is the crypto, but please do correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Yan. Let's have a look. Let's have a look on Bybit, shall we? Yes, it is. Perfect. Okie doke. Well, let's have a look then, shall we? Let's take a nice zoom out and take a look at this on a weekly scale. Where are we? Really nice, clean level capping the market here, right? Whenever I see one of these, I'm always jumping straight on that. Look at that. That wick high here, capping the market, rejection, price comes underneath, sells off. Rejection, rejection. Not actually managed to get any body closes above that level, right? So on a weekly scale, yeah, that level for me at the moment is absolutely king. So I want to kind of keep that in mind there as well. Just looking here. Now, the other interesting thing that we've got here is we've got a balanced price range here. And this, again, is incredibly clean. Just draw that in. So BPR weekly. So a balanced price range, for anybody that doesn't know, is when you have in this case, a bearish gap. When a bullish gap closes back through it, this becomes a balanced price range, right? And these areas offer really, really good levels of support and resistance, okay? So obviously it would be the same the other way. We don't have one on the chart, but if we had a bullish fair value gap close through with a bearish one, we would look at that as a key area of resistance. So really, you know, this area is pretty clean actually, because there's a couple of things I want to mention on this. One is there would have been an expectation for a little bit more of a pullback here. You've got this fair value gap above. And look how price just kind of, I mean, it just tickled into this before selling off. Now, normally that's, you know, that's a big sign of weakness. You're very welcome, Nick. I hope it was useful, mate. So while we hold this, I mean, this for me is not the place to short this, by the way. On a weekly scale, you would want to see this closed above, in which case I think we attack this level again, especially going after this liquidity, all right, on a weekly scale. But that's maybe not quite granular enough for us to get a plan. Now, we can see we've got the daily gap here, which oversits the weekly, so we won't bother drawing that in on top. But that is going to be kind of our draw on liquidity here, where price is kind of driving down a little bit more into this. Key liquidity on a daily scale. Equal lows here, which price has just ran. Equal lows are always incredibly potent liquidity pool, so we want to see how price reacts here. Really, if we're expecting some kind of resurgence here, we'd want to see a pretty quick, do it with this one instead, a pretty quick V-shape recovery here. If, you know, equal lows, very, very often, you know, you would see it as, say, retail support. Really, really good place for market makers, you know, people like that to target in terms of knowing that there's going to be quite a lot of liquidity down there. So you want to see a quick reaction here. So a long wick on this candle getting pushed back up on a daily scale. So tomorrow when we get the close, if we have a gap in here, yeah, something like this, and then tomorrow if we see price go up and close above that, then for me that's a really good sign that we're going to start attacking the liquidity sat here and ultimately drive up higher into this weekly gap above us. If we close below this, yeah, then the most logical liquidity pool is resting here underneath. All right, so that's what I would be looking for. I'd really need to sort of see something with a lot of conviction here to short into this, right? Because we're so low in this move, right? So from a risk to reward perspective, you have to ask yourself, would institutions, would, you know, the big money players that really do move these markets, would they really be looking to short into this? Might be looking to induce shorts to push them down to a key level where they can reverse and then send the market the other way. But, you know, there's always more risk attached when you're shorting something so late in the game. So let's take a look at the 4 hour quickly as well, shall we? So the 4 hour basically tells us the same story, right? We've got another little kind of liquidity level under here as well. I don't see any reason why that would offer any stronger reaction than this. You know, equal lows we would always put on a pedestal above just, you know, a random kind of interim low or high like this. We have this gap. We have another small gap above it here as well, right? So again, what we would want to see on this level is we've had a nice little local sweep into these equal lows. We want to see a nice big pump, some resurgence to get us back above this, and then see if we can hold. You know, up to here would be ideal. So we fill this as well, even if we don't close above it, come back down into this level, and then on a lower time frame, look for this kind of pattern. All right, where price comes in, sets a low, set a high, yeah. Then on the purge of liquidity, so when price takes out this low, you then want to see a fair value gap forming here that we can invert. So we're seeing what should be resistance turn to support, and then we can look to be buyers around here, pushing up first of all into these levels. Then we mitigate our risk, bringing our stops up, take some portion off of the trade, and then we look for the structure to kind of continue from here and upwards, drawing ultimately into these large inefficiencies over here on the left. Perfect. So that's where we are with that. And then there was IMX as well, wasn't there? Was it Williest? Were you after IMX, mate? Let's see what we've got here. Take a look at this. Crypto 101. Hello, mate. Yeah, do you know what? We'll finish up with Atom, shall we? I love that. It's nice relative strength. That's a really, really good way to look at these markets in these conditions, right? So what Crypto 101 saying here, Atom has nice relative strength, meaning that it's relative stronger against the market, right? So it's outperforming it. There's a reason for that often. Excuse me. Often it's the sign of a good project. It can also be the sign of upcoming partnerships or kind of narrative in the market that's starting to get strength. The other side of it is if it's showing a lot of relative strength and the bottom does go out of the market, then those assets can often be higher up, meaning that if we do want to short them temporarily, it gives us an asset that's kind of popped off a bit more, so is more likely to have a corrective move. Right, okay, so on the weekly, we are looking here, and you're very, very welcome, Jan. One of my best friends is called Jan, the magnificent Dutchman. So we've got this little tiny gap here. We've got this abnormal wick, right? So if I ever see a wick like that, remember like we did on the last asset with IMX, how we saw that big abnormal wick, drew that across. We saw how kind of beautifully that had been capping the market, all right? So just looking at this, that's probably realistically the next kind of key point of liquidity here for that. We didn't really get the strongest reaction here. Price came and closed above this. I would imagine that it was market conditions more than anything that kind of turned this. But again, our inversion fair value gap gave us the real kind of heads up when we closed below it here, right? It left a few key indicators for us. It let us know that that was the first kind of point that it would be reaching for, that within inside this gap. Then if we closed out this gap, which we did here, the expectation would be for price to come and take out this low. Now, price ultimately took out that low already with the move down, right, on this time frame. So now we're looking for where the next liquidity is resting. And for me, these relative equal lows below us are really, really key. All right. So on a weekly scale, it seems like we're probably drawing down towards these now. We're delivering from this bearish fair value gap here. So price came down, set this low, set these equal lows here, drew back up, sellers kind of reloaded here, and now price is pushing lower. So for this one, I'd really be looking for a reaction here around at 1.6427. That'd be the key area. Hey, Erica. How are you doing, my friend? So if we have a look at this, Shakir, this guy Burbrick, so many people ask Bull, mate, not surprised any Burbrick. Newbies beware of this shyster. I'm not Burb, mate, but I do have a lot of respect for the guy. The pleasure of working with him. He also made countless and countless of people a lot of wealth. Look, anybody in this game, you're all completely responsible for what you do, right? You're all responsible for your own actions. Don't fucking put your shit onto other people. Mince bags and twats do that. Take responsibility for where you put your money, right? People that come on here and do this, yeah, there's loads of shysters in the space. There's people that will scam you. But again, that's up to you to find out. Don't be one of these morons that goes through life looking for hands out. Really sorry if you were hurt, Shakir, or if you've had anything with that. But, mate, to me, you just sound like another loser that's looking for an excuse. Anyway, unfortunately, you can't please them all, can you? But, I hate people like that. Coming on and just mincing and moaning about other people that are trying to either help them out. Or if you have been scammed, look, we've all been there. It all happens. Do your own research, right? So with this, I think this is probably our cleanest asset when we're looking at this on a draw on liquidity. 1.6427 is what I would be looking for here, all right? So let's move this down to a daily scale. Yeah, exactly. Look, yeah, life is all about lessons. Some of the most painful ones we have with everything, not just with trading, with life. If you're not learning from your lessons, you either sit and you moan about them and then the world fucking slips away from you. So we've got a little interim low here that we could be targeting, right? So we don't want to ignore this down here. Right, this one's at 1.772, okay? So what we might see is something like this. I mean, I would be really surprised if these equal lows don't get tagged, but then we could have a resurgence in the risk markets. Obviously a lot of things could happen. But once again, we can see here how when price drove into this area, this fair value gap was created on that drive. If the bullish intent was really there, this should have acted as support and price could move on, but we didn't. Notice how we closed below it here as price starts to draw lower. So the first kind of point that I'd be looking at here, this is also a balanced price range, right? Remember, as I was saying to you before, we do this in a kind of lighter shade here. That's a bullish fair value gap with a bearish one closed through it, right? Then as we come up, it definitely does look like a huge cup and handle as well. I'm not a pattern trader personally, but yeah, let's hope maybe it's not. This thing could go beyond zero. But this could be a draw on price coming back, but it would also be a really key level that I would want to see. I would think that we will get something like this, a recovery of this, and then when we get into a bullish structure, I would then be targeting this. I would look to kind of close my position, cover myself, not all of it, but cover myself here. And then I would want to see this area flipped, right? Because then we're kind of just up here. We're up in this bearish FEG. So it's really important that we show some strength coming through this and then hold this as support. Once we get to this level, all right, I know we've got this high time frame inversion here, but what I'm a little bit more concerned about is, again, I'd want to see a swift move through that because we've got these areas here that shouldn't really be offering us many areas of resistance, right? Once we get up and we hold those kind of levels, I think we can really start to punch forward. So, I mean, that looks really, really clean to me on a daily and a weekly. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to offer much more on this front, but yeah, okay, 4 hours got some nice gaps on it as well. So again, we would expect ones like this to hold. All right, we can see delivering from a bearish FEG at the moment. We've got an immediate liquidity target below us here. So the expectation would be for price to be delivering from this to come and start seeking liquidity targets lower. If we do manage to kind of pop back up and close above this, then I think we could definitely move a little bit higher. All right, so I hope that's been helpful on IMX. And then one last one before we go. Let's take a little look at Atom. Okay, so on a weekly scale, what are we doing? Okay, on a weekly scale with Atom, I'm going to see why this is maybe holding a little bit more relative strength, right? Holding this fair value gap really nicely on a weekly scale. Price had a pretty strong reaction to this initially as it drew up into this bearish FEG, but it's not managing to get below this. Again, we close below this on a weekly scale, and I think we're going to come down to here. This is the kind of big draw on liquidity, like pulling it higher is this big gap here, all right? So at the moment, we're kind of delivering from that into this and back, almost creating and sandwiching us in our own little range. So a couple of things here. One, this is a good looking candle. All right, flushed out liquidity below this low. Would have liked to have seen it take out this low rather than kind of leaving them. They're not really equal lows. They're relative equal lows at best, but there's that low there and that low very close. Again, these can be really, really key areas to watch for a reaction. But as it stands, price is again kind of rejecting from this. So while we can see price drawing higher into this, yeah, then what we can say is, okay, well, even if we look at this like this, if we look to the equilibrium of this gap on the higher time frame, right? Then there would be an expectation for price to draw at least towards that before it makes a decision on whether it's going to reject that or not. So if we can get a daily close here on Atom above here, excuse me, which I'll just do in green to show that it's bullish. If we can get that close above here, then we can take lower time frame trades, yeah, or intraday trades into this level, see how it reacts, see how price kind of purges up higher into this. At the moment, the issue that we've got is drawing into this really big high time frame gap. We don't know if we're going to reject in there or not. So we need the lower time frame to add a little bit more kind of granularity to the situation. So looking at this very quickly, you see how we've just started to get ourselves into a bullish structure here, right? Again, we see the nice inversion fair value gap. All right, price disrespects this and actually closes in all of these gaps all the way up here. Now has popped back into this, as well as the fact that this is a bullish gap underneath it now. I'll just do that in green so it stands out a bit more above all the grey. But it's the gap that was left by this candle's expansion here. Price is dipping into this now, and it looks like it wants to kind of make a move higher. The fact that it's filled these gaps in here tells me that it's got to be making a move up to at least here. But this could be looking like a decent resurgence here. All right, price kind of getting back in. Like we said in the previous candle, we really like that kind of bullish hammer candle that we had as well. So yeah, I quite like this here in terms of in terms of looking to actually trade this. I think I would normally be waiting for the kind of latter sessions, but I think we've got the move here in London. Yeah, we've got the sweep, we get the break, we've had the retest of the fair value gap. So I'd be targeting this level up here at the moment, about 8.579. Obviously, you hope there's not a big flash on Bitcoin, which can drag the market down with it. But, it's a good spot by Crypto 101 earlier. He said, this has got relative strength, is really standing out in the market. And the reason for that is, on these kind of dumps, or when you see a lot of blood in the water, cigars, yeah, exactly. Get this chest recovered soon, I think, and cracked a couple of ribs recently, so that doesn't help matters, but it's all in good fun. So yeah, I think, look, with good projects, when the markets start to flush, people are happy to buy. Right, people are happy to buy little snippets here, little bits here, dollar cost averaging on the way down. So you'll see good projects. And Atom's very widely and highly respected project in the space. So this can be people starting to accumulate. It doesn't mean that it's the resurgence, but it does mean that you can jump on board with a little bit of strength. Eduardo B, all right, mate, we were just about to finish, but let's take a quick high time frame look for you on Riot, but that will be the last one that we're doing. Are you looking at Riot on the NASDAQ, mate, or is it a crypto project? I'll start with the crypto project because chances are it could well be. Oh no, Root. So no, it wouldn't be that then. So you must be NASDAQ, right? Riot platforms. Let's have a look. Awesome. All right, mate, perfect. Let's take a look. Ooh, okay. This one's interesting. Okay, it's the first thing that kind of jumps out on here. Earnings yesterday. Yeah, okay. So had that kind of pump yesterday, and now it's looking to kind of dip back a little bit, right? So I'll leave that in green to show that's a bullish gap because I really like that reaction. We just dipped under this, right? Back into this gap, and then we've had that. The other thing that we've done, you're very welcome, mate, is we've cleaned out these lows, right? So in cleaning out those lows, we found that little reaction, right? Now this here, as Eduardo points out, is that we had earnings, all right? So what have we got on today? Anything? No, nothing really key there. But we had earnings. What have we done? Estimate 0.19 period ending. Yeah, okay. So down a little bit, right? Now, what you can see is often you get this pump into earnings or into news, then the market settles, and you get that kind of move down. I think looking at this on a weekly scale, I like this reaction here. I'm just going to mark up the next liquidity point higher. I like that because it's a high that sat within a fair value gap, and they often make really good liquidity targets. One that the daily could teach us a little bit more here, right? So we've got this here. Interesting. So this could be a drop into this bit, a little bit of a kind of preemptive one. Now we've got a couple of gaps here. But we are holding this kind of larger gap. All right, so we'll kind of give this precedent. Now, we can see we've had this recent kind of bullish resurgence here. And what we've done is we've kind of violated a lot of these kind of very, very small up-close candles that we would expect to keep price suppressed. What we would want to see, or what I would want to see, here, is looking at this in terms of risk to reward profile. Is saying, okay, well, now we're down in the lower 50% of this range. Right, so just focus on that little midline there. We're now in an area that we would want to start to see some buying step in, all right? So let's just lock that a second and then see what it's like on the 4 hour. Yeah, see, on the 4, it's still looking quite heavy on the 4 hour. You obviously get a lot of gapping on these assets. People are positioning on these assets on much higher time frames, all right? But what we're trying to do is find these little areas that we might be able to get, and see a little bit of a reaction down here. But down here, I quite like it for a dip into this. Obviously, we've got a little while yet, not too long though. We've got pre-market here is going to start in about 40 minutes. So I think maybe a quick purge lower in pre-market to position, and then watching out this area here. This gap, we're obviously down in the form of a larger gap already. but I'd love to see price kind of come down a little bit deeper into this, still induce those people short, and then to get this kind of structure recovery here, right? And then I really do fancy it for kind of having a go at this level, 13.12. I really like this move up here, right? Now, yeah, these can be manipulation legs, you know, inducing longs before the market really kind of sheds lower. But if we just kind of zoom back out again and look at this, I really like the reaction that we got down here, right? Strong reaction, nice hammer candle, right? Or a pin bar candle with a short nose, however you kind of know them. Then we had a nice big expansion candle here. This, obviously, at the moment, look, it's weekly, right? Obviously, we need the week to kind of continue. When we look at it on the daily, this was a really, really good pump here. The question is this pulling back in expectation of earnings? Or is there some kind of news that maybe might be affecting the sector? That's what I'd be thinking with this. I wouldn't be looking to short this asset here. I'd certainly be looking for buy opportunities down here. But I would want to just see a bit of strength on the lower time frames. All right, guys. We're going to close it off there. Thank you a lot for listening to me ramble through. I know it's a bit of a smaller session today as well. We didn't really broadcast it out live to as many people, but it was a really, really nice session, actually. Lots of really cool. Eduardo, it's a pleasure to have you on here. Crypto 101, to see you again, mate. Craigie Boy and Net, who is always a pleasure. Jan, it was brilliant to have you on here as well. Willius to Joshua Walker, great to see you again after a while, mate. Whack, obviously, as well. Rave Song Records. In from Chicago, I believe, which was really, really cool. It was brilliant to have you all on here. We had a really productive session. It was great for all the questions. Thank you for some really, really cool assets as well. Yeah, so I'll be off Monday. It's a public holiday over here. Going to get a little bit of rest and recuperation. Going to probably be doing a bit of work over the weekend. But then Tuesday, be back with you guys live Wednesday, and obviously with members all through from Tuesday. All right. Yeah, blessings to you all, guys. Look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Trade safe. Keep an eye on the news today. Remember, we've got a very, very volatile news day coming up as well. And obviously a bank holiday in the rain. That is how we roll here in the UK. If we didn't do things in the rain, I don't think we'd do many things at all. All right, guys. Have a fantastic week. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.